So King Charles just pulled off what might be the most quietly dramatic power move in modern royal history, and almost nobody saw it happen. No cameras, no press release, no official announcement, just a private gathering in an old room somewhere in Britain, a second crown placed next to the throne, and a decision that reportedly left every single person in that room completely silent. Because what Charles apparently did wasn't just about succession, it was about choosing who actually leads the monarchy right now. And the person he chose wasn't William. It was Catherine. Before we get into the details, if you're new here, we break down royal news as it happens on Crown Watch, so hit subscribe real quick so you don't miss the next update. It takes like 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps the channel. So let's talk about what supposedly happened. The reports are describing this as a silent gathering in one of the old rooms in Britain. And honestly, the secrecy around it is the first thing that makes this feel different. There was no alert sent to broadcasters. No tabloids got advance notice. The palace didn't release a statement afterward. The time and day weren't even disclosed. That's not how the modern monarchy usually operates. Normally, even the smallest engagement gets a press advisory weeks in advance. So the fact that this happened without any of that tells you Charles wanted this to be personal, not performative. He reportedly requested the presence of a select group, senior royals, constitutional advisors, palace officials who'd served for decades, and none of them knew what they were walking into. Catherine arrived quietly, no press cameras, no photographers waiting outside. She was described as carrying herself with that same composure she's become known for, the kind where you can't tell if she's nervous or just completely in control. But then Charles walked in, and according to people who were there, the entire mood shifted. They compared it to the silence before a rainstorm, that heavy feeling where you know something significant is about to happen, but you don't know what. Charles stood at the head of the room for what felt like an extended pause. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Then he turned, looked directly at Catherine, and moved toward her. Now here's where it gets strange. There was a second crown placed next to the throne. That's not a normal thing. Crowns don't just sit around as decorative props. They're symbols with specific constitutional meaning. And the fact that nobody in the room, not the senior royals, not the palace staff, not the constitutional experts, could explain why it was there. That means this wasn't part of some pre-approved ceremony. This was Charles doing something deliberately outside the usual framework. He rose slowly, and multiple accounts noted he was moving more slowly than anyone had ever seen him before. That detail matters because it suggests this wasn't an energetic, impulsive gesture. This was deliberate. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he took his time doing it. He reached for the crown, turned to Catherine, and placed it on her shoulders for all time. That's the phrase being used, not placed it on her head like a coronation, placed it on her shoulders, symbolic language for transferring weight, responsibility, leadership. And the room went silent, not applause, not gasps, silence. Because everyone there understood they'd just witnessed something that wasn't supposed to happen in that room on that day in that way. Now, before anyone says this is just dramatic storytelling, let's look at the context. Charles announced his cancer diagnosis in February 2024. Buckingham Palace confirmed it was an unidentified form of cancer. He stepped back from public duties in the early months of that year for treatment, but he kept working behind the scenes, signing documents, attending briefings, doing the constitutional work that doesn't make headlines. Then in December 2025, he put out a video message for the Stand Up to Cancer campaign on Channel 4, and he spoke directly as someone who's been affected by cancer. He said his treatment was transitioning into what his medical team called a cautious phase. He called it a significant milestone, and then he paused for several extended seconds in that video. People noticed the pause at the time. It felt like he was choosing his words carefully, like there was more he wanted to say but couldn't. So when you combine that health timeline with this private ceremony, the picture gets clearer. Charles isn't stepping down. He's still doing engagements, still meeting with heads of state, still maintaining a full schedule. But he's also aware that his time to act is limited, not in a dramatic, the end is near way, but in the practical sense that every monarch eventually has to think about what they're building. And Charles appears to have decided that the most important thing he can do right now is publicly or semi-publicly affirm Catherine as the emotional leader of the monarchy. That's the key distinction everyone's missing. The legal succession hasn't changed. William is still the heir. Prince George is still second in line. No laws were altered. No constitutional documents were rewritten. But the monarchy's power doesn't come from laws. It comes from visibility, from connection, from whether the public actually believes the institution represents them. And that's where Catherine has been doing something no one else in the family has managed to replicate. Let's talk about what Catherine's been through, because it directly explains why Charles would make this move. She announced her own cancer diagnosis in March 2024. She sat in a garden in Windsor wearing a simple striped shirt and told the world she was undergoing preventive chemotherapy. No script, no polished production, just direct, honest communication. And the public response shifted almost immediately. This was someone who'd been in the public eye for 15 years, someone who'd been scrutinized for her wardrobe, her posture, her smile, every tiny detail. And suddenly the tabloids backed off, not completely, but noticeably. The comments section softened. People who'd never cared about the royal family were suddenly worried about her, not because she was a princess, but because she was a mother with 3 young kids facing the same terrifying diagnosis that millions of families deal with. She finished chemotherapy in September 2024. Her return to public life was gradual, carefully scheduled, focused on events that mattered rather than just filling a calendar. And then in January 2026, she confirmed she was in remission. 2 words that carried enormous weight. The relief wasn't just in Britain, it was global, because people had watched her disappear, fight, recover, and come back. And that arc did something for the monarchy that no amount of traditional royal work could accomplish. It made her human in a way that felt real, not manufactured. There's a moment from early 2026 that keeps getting shared online. Catherine was at Evelina London Children's Hospital, and a 10-year-old girl named Audrian asked her if she was the queen. Catherine paused, smiled, and answered in a way that was warm and human rather than correcting the child with some formal explanation. That moment spread everywhere. And it said more about her public perception than any official title could, because the girl wasn't confused about the line of succession. She was recognizing something. She saw Catherine and thought, that's the person in charge. That's the person who matters. And that's exactly what Charles has apparently decided to formalize. Now, the constitutional side of this is genuinely interesting if you understand how the British system works. The UK Constitution isn't a single document. It's a collection of laws, judicial decisions, customs, and centuries of accumulated understanding. That flexibility means the monarchy can adapt without changing the legal framework. So when Charles reportedly elevated Catherine in this private ceremony, he wasn't altering the succession, he was doing something arguably more powerful. He was shifting public perception of who leads the institution. And in a system where the monarch's power comes from visibility and emotional connection, that perception is everything. Queen Elizabeth understood this perfectly. Her power wasn't in controlling Parliament. It was in being a symbol so consistent and stable that people couldn't imagine the country without her. When she died in September 2022 at Balmoral, the monarchy lost that anchor. And since then, the institution has been searching for something to fill that gap. Charles inherited that problem. He also inherited a health crisis that forced him to think about legacy sooner than he probably expected. And when you look at the approval ratings from 2024 and 2025, the story is clear. Charles is respected. Camilla has achieved acceptance. William is trusted, but Catherine is loved. And that's a different thing entirely. The Kate effect isn't just about fashion selling out. It's about influence. It's about the fact that when she speaks, people listen. When she shows up, crowds form. When she went through her health crisis, the public didn't just sympathize. They felt personally invested in her recovery. That's the kind of connection the monarchy hasn't had since Diana, and it's built on something different. Diana's connection was partly about rebellion, about being an outsider within the institution. Catherine's connection is about resilience. She's inside the system. She's been tested by it. She's faced something terrifying, and she came back stronger. People don't just admire her, they trust her. There were reports that Catherine became the first Princess of Wales in 116 years to grant royal warrants in 2026. That's a significant power, one that hadn't been exercised since Queen Mary's time. Royal warrants are basically official endorsements of British businesses and industries. They carry real economic weight, and the fact that Catherine was given this responsibility before she's even queen tells you how the palace views her role. She's not waiting in the wings. She's already operating as a central figure in the institution. Sources close to the palace have said there were a series of discussions between Charles, William, and senior constitutional advisors in the months leading up to this private ceremony. These conversations happened at Highgrove and Buckingham Palace, and according to those sources, they weren't about medical succession planning. Those matters are always handled separately. These discussions were about public perception of the monarchy's future. And Catherine's name came up repeatedly, not because anyone was questioning William's eventual role, but because they recognized that Catherine brings something different to the table. She's approachable in a way that the institution desperately needs right now. The palace has also been careful about how Catherine's role expanded. Her position as Colonel of the Irish Guards was highlighted. She led the St. Patrick's Day function at Mons Barracks in Aldershot in 2026, demonstrating both warmth and knowledge of the occasion. These aren't random appearances. They're deliberate steps in a larger strategy. Every engagement, every title, every responsibility has been building toward this moment where Charles could point to her and say, this is the person who will carry the monarchy's relevance into the future. And honestly, the fact that this ceremony was private is the most interesting part. If Charles wanted to make a formal constitutional change, he would have done it publicly with all the traditional pageantry. If he wanted to send a message to the government, there would have been official channels, but he chose a quiet room, a small gathering, a personal gesture. That's not how you change laws. That's how you change narratives. He was telling the people in that room, the ones who will be advising William and Catherine for decades, that the future of the monarchy has a face, and that face is Catherine's. There's something almost old-fashioned about it, actually. The monarchy has always made its most important decisions in private, only revealing them when the time is right. Queen Elizabeth's reign was built on that principle. She understood that the power of the institution came from consistency and careful management, not from dramatic public pronouncements. Charles seems to be following that same instinct here. He's not making a spectacle, he's making a statement to the people who matter and letting that statement filter outward through the palace's communication channels. The reaction from Britain has been described as consistent, first silence, then relief, because for a lot of people this confirms something they already felt. Catherine has been functioning as the monarchy's emotional center for years. She's the one people look to when they want to feel good about the institution. She's the one who can stand in a room and make people feel like everything's going to be okay. That's not a skill you can teach. It's not something you can manufacture with good PR. It's either there or it isn't. And Catherine's health journey proved it was real. When she announced her diagnosis, she didn't try to spin it. She didn't use it to gain sympathy. She just told the truth and stepped back to focus on her family. That's why people believed her when she said she was in remission. That's why they celebrated when she returned, because she'd earned that trust through honesty and vulnerability. Not through careful image management, but through actually going through something hard and coming out the other side. Charles witnessed all of this firsthand. He was going through his own cancer treatment at the same time. He understood what she was facing because he was facing it too. And he watched as she handled it with a grace that he probably recognized from his own mother. Queen Elizabeth had that same quality, the ability to make people feel calm even when everything was uncertain. Catherine has it too, and Charles apparently decided that quality is too valuable to leave unrecognized. So what does this actually mean for the future? The legal answer hasn't changed. William will be king. George will follow him. The line of succession continues as it has for over 1,000 years. But the monarchy's survival doesn't depend on the line of succession. It depends on relevance. It depends on whether people feel like the institution belongs to them. And that's what Catherine represents. She's not just a future queen. She's a current leader. She's the person who makes the monarchy feel human and accessible in a way that's increasingly necessary. There was a senior government official who reportedly called this a necessary and timely modernization of the monarchy. Another political observer pointed out that the monarchy's strength lies in its ability to bring people together during times of division. And Catherine is uniquely positioned to do that. She's not controversial. She's not polarizing. She's just steady. And in a country that's been through political chaos, economic uncertainty, and a pandemic, steady is exactly what people want. Charles knows this. He's been king long enough now to understand that the job isn't just about constitutional duties. It's about being a symbol. And if you can't be that symbol yourself, the next best thing is to identify who can be and elevate them. That's what this private ceremony apparently accomplished. It wasn't about Charles stepping back. It wasn't about William being passed over. It was about Charles looking at the person his mother would have wanted to carry the monarchy forward and saying, yes, this is the one. The fact that this happened without cameras or press coverage makes it more powerful, not less, because it means Charles wasn't performing for the public. He was making a genuine decision about the institution's future. And the people who were there, the senior royals, the advisors, the palace officials, they'll remember it. They'll know that when the question of leadership came up, Charles didn't hesitate. He pointed to Catherine. So when you look at the whole picture, the health crisis, the public connection, the careful preparation, the private ceremony, it all makes sense. This wasn't a random gesture. It was the culmination of years of observation and planning. Charles watched Catherine survive something terrifying and come back stronger. He watched the public respond to her in a way they hadn't responded to any royal since Diana. He watched as she took on more responsibility, granted royal warrants, led military functions connected with children in hospitals, and he decided that this was the person who could carry the monarchy's emotional weight into the future. The legacy question is unavoidable for any monarch. What did you build? What did you leave behind? Charles hasn't had the longest reign, and he's faced health challenges that forced him to think about these things sooner than expected, but he's also had the clarity to recognize what matters. The laws can stay the same, the succession can continue unchanged, but if the people don't believe in the monarchy's relevance, none of that matters, and Catherine makes people believe. That's what the second crown symbolized. Not a transfer of legal power, but a transfer of emotional authority. Charles was saying, this person has earned the right to lead, not because of birth or title, but because she's proven she can carry the weight. She's been tested, she's survived, she's come back, and the public loves her for it. So when that little girl at the hospital asked if Catherine was the queen, she wasn't confused. She was seeing something clearly that the constitutional experts in that private room probably understood for the first time when Charles reached for that crown. Catherine isn't waiting to become the monarchy's leader. She already is, and Charles just made sure everyone who matters knows it.